Welcome, everyone. My name is Amy Sapphire. I am the Jeffco PTA president. Tonight, we bring you a training for secretaries and bylaws that's going to be brought to you by Crystal Marine, our VP of Communications. So I'm going to hand it over to her now.
Hello and welcome. So a couple things, if you're just getting into the meeting and you haven't yet, go ahead and enter your name and school, your first and last name into this chat box. And then I always like to start with some icebreakers when I do meetings or trainings. So for the first little icebreaker, in the chat box with a show of a star, who is serving on a PTA board for the first time this year? Okay. And then the second thing that I'm going to ask for you guys to input into the chat box is, what are you hoping to get from tonight's training? And I ask that question so that we can maybe look into a future training, either later this year or even at convention. A quick shameless plug, please save the date. Colorado PTA convention is going to be April 26th through the 27th at the Sheridan Hotel in Lakewood. So we're expecting a big turnout for Jeffco since it's going to be in our neighborhood. And it's going to be great. So we're excited. So while you guys are doing that, just a quick review of what our time together is going to look like. So first, we're going to cover what the secretary position actually is. And those duties that are associated. We'll cover all things meeting minutes, bylaws basics, and parliamentary procedures. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump in and get started. So for the secretary position, there's kind of three buckets of business that the secretary either oversees or helps with. We're going to jump into each of those really quick here. So first, there's some meeting responsibilities. That starts with meeting prep. The secretary should be involved in helping to create the agenda and then ensuring documents are prepped and ready to go for any meeting. So that looks like having agendas available for any attendees, past minutes for review, and any handouts or flyers that are going to be pertinent to that meeting are ready and available. During the actual meeting, the secretary is responsible to take attendance. That should be included in your meeting minutes. Ensure a quorum is met based on the bylaws of your association, and present minutes from the previous meetings for approval. And the last thing is the secretary is responsible for recording throughout the meeting. That looks like taking detailed minutes and recording votes that may take place during the meeting. One last category is correspondence on behalf of the association. So this would include any notes or communications received, writing and sending maybe thank you notes, and managing other mail and correspondence as it comes in and is applicable. Perhaps the greatest responsibility of the secretary is record keeping. The secretary is responsible for maintaining things like any historical documents, bylaws, minutes, and other records. Historical documents and other things can be kept via paper, digitally, or both, and should be maintained for the life of the association. That historical document piece is really relevant at the state and higher level for PTAs, but I just want to include that in case we have anybody that's ambitious on this call that might want to get involved in a higher level. Now you know. The secretary is also responsible for keeping an official and current copy of the bylaws for review by members at any time. Then also for meeting minutes. Meeting minutes or other records like votes should be available and easily accessible for member requests. And also legal institutes that may require them. So a bank may request meeting minutes when you're changing signers on the account or verifying business decisions as examples. So meeting minutes, what the heck are they? They're actually considered legal documents and the official record of business for an association. They record what happened and are not a transcript of the meeting. They should be brief and factual. So if you're not keeping a transcription of a meeting, what are you including? First, the name of the association is really important. What type of meeting are you having? Is it a regular meeting, a board meeting, a special session? The meeting date, time, and location. the time that the meeting was called to order, and whether quorum was established or not. Those are all very important elements to meeting minutes. You are going to document whether the previous minutes were approved or not. Include summarized reports from officers and or committees that may be presenting during your meeting. Complete reports should be attached to the minute meetings, but again, just a summary of what that report was during the meeting. All motions should be recorded. That includes the maker of the motion and the outcome. You do not need to include any withdrawn motions. The name and subject of guest speakers, you do not need to include a summary of what their presentation, but just the name and the subject that they're presenting on. Documenting any unfinished business that did not get resolved during the meeting, any new business that was introduced throughout the meeting, announcements that were made, and finally, the time of the meeting adjournment. That's a lot of information to record, so a couple hot tips. One, use the agenda as your minutes template. You have the order of business in front of you, and then you can just insert the summary of actions. Two, sit close to the presiding officer. When you're close to the action, the chances of missing something are a lot lower and you can hear better. And then third is number your pages. This just helps keep you organized in the moment. So I'm just going to take a quick pause. And Amy, are there any questions in the chat box? If you've got questions, just add them to there. I'm going to take a pause to answer anything that's come up on what I've presented so far.
Mostly just the expectations.
Okay. I'm going to give it
open it up if anybody wants to ask a verbal question.
Yep. I'm presenting in full screen, so I can't see the chat box, so.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be sharing these meeting minutes afterwards?
The slide presentation and the meeting recording will go out after all of our trainings are completed, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I think that was the only question. Oh no, there was another question about sharing the presentation afterwards, which we will do.
Yep.
I have one more question. Do you have an agenda template that you recommend, or do you have something that you hand out that would help all of us get started?
I do have some, so I can definitely make sure to include that.
And there is one more question, name of person who moves and then seconds. So I guess that's a question if that's something that you have to record.
That's my
question.
question.
Yep, seconds don't need to be recorded. It's just whoever made the motion.
That's all the questions.
I have another question. If you vote on a motion, do you have to record the votes of like yays, nays, and abstains?
Yes, just you don't need to record like individual. It's just how many.
Right, but the amount, like the
Yes.
count. Okay.
Yep. Unless it's unanimous.
I had another kind of general question about minutes. I know typically at like a following meeting, you would approve the prior minutes, like from the previous meeting. I have found, at least in being with the PTA, that things move faster than the PTA meets. And so some people who can't be there at every meeting might benefit from seeing those minutes beforehand. Do you guys have any kind of expectation about like publishing the minutes prior to their technical approval at the following meeting, or another suggestion in terms of like getting that approval so that people can see the minutes before the next month happens?
Yeah, so a great suggestion would be just including a link if you send them out digitally into your agenda. Like I like to do it at the very bottom of the agenda, like just meeting minutes to approve and then the date of that meeting.
So would that agenda go out? So like say, for example, I'm meeting on September 1st is our first PTA meeting, and our next one will be on October 1st. If you were to include that in the October 1st agenda, like, that agenda would need to get created pretty promptly for people to see it before October 1st.
Yeah,
like people might need that information by September 7th because they couldn't attend the meeting. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know about the date prep like piece, but so the agenda, send that out in advance of the meeting and then include I like to send them out digitally via email and then link the meeting minutes to that agenda. So like if you're sending out October 1st meeting on like September 25th, for example, that would be a week, almost 5 days before the meeting, and then link the meeting minutes to that agenda for October 1st meeting. Am I answering that clearly?
I
If I
understand what you're
can-
saying, but if like PTA is running like 3 different events like before that, I'm trying to figure out when I should publish minutes
If I
like
can
relative to their
interject,
approval. Yeah.
if I can interject, I think usually what I tend to do, kind of exactly like you're saying, is we have our meeting, and then usually on a Thursday, and then that weekend I send out meeting minutes to everyone to let them know what happened in that meeting for those who weren't able to
Gotcha.
attend. And then we don't have our next meeting until the next month. Is that acceptable? Is that okay? Or do the
Yeah.
meeting minutes? Okay.
Yeah,
That's totally
that's the fundamental of what I'm asking. And thank you, Lindsay. Am I allowed to
Mhm.
publish and send out meeting minutes before they are technically approved?
Yeah, I think it just making sure that you're listing it as a draft
Okay.
before they're approved is the appropriate way to do that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for that clarification, Lindsay. I was not quite getting there on the same page. So I appreciate that. Any other questions before we move on?
I think I have one more question. Should we be publishing our board meeting minutes and sending them out to all PTA members? Or is it enough to make them available? Like at Kiffin, we have monthly PTA board meetings, and then there are broader PTA meetings for all members every single month, or every other month.
I mean, there isn't really a specific, check your bylaws first of all, because sometimes that'll be addressed in your bylaws on how that happens, but it's totally whatever your board decides to do. If it's not addressed in your bylaws. I think sometimes some of the meeting minutes from the board meetings they're just nice to have available, but a lot of people in my experience are more interested in what's happening at the actual PTA meetings where business is being voted on and actually decided on versus the planning process that is happening at the board meetings. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Totally makes sense. And then in the chat, Amy just said minutes should be sent out to membership.
Yeah.
So is it just a call about bylaws?
Yeah. Check your bylaws. They will address what you should do with meeting minutes.
Okay, great.
No more in the chat.
Perfect. We're going to move into bylaws. So bylaws are a legal requirement of all nonprofits in the US. They're the governing rules of the association. So all bylaws should include your local unit PTA, PTSA name, the objective or purpose of your unit, any officers or duties that you include on your board of directors, and then include nomination, election, vacancy rules and procedures, membership and committee requirements, meeting and quorum requirements. How often are you meeting? What is your quorum? Financial duties, and then also dissolution procedures. The dissolution procedures is a legal requirement by the IRS, just an FYI, to maintain your 501c3 status. Bylaws should be summaries and focused on a little bit of a bigger picture. If you get too detailed and you include too much info, you could be interfering with your association's ability to pivot or adjust and get work done. Bylaws are not supposed to be easily amendable. But if you are interested and you want to provide detailed procedures for how your unit conducts business, consider procedure books for the different elements. So like for fundraising or for membership processes. These are not legal documents and are easily edited to accommodate the needs of your association. So I know that a lot of units, your membership fluctuates, and sometimes you don't have the ability to carve out a full committee, a full fundraising committee, or a full membership committee. So if you're just doing procedure handbooks, you can easily edit those, whereas the bylaws are legally binding. A few more things to include with bylaws. Your unit's bylaws must be filed every time that you make a change or every 3 years from the official approval date by the Colorado PTA Bylaws Committee. Once your membership approves your either amendments or they do your 3-year review, as soon as they're approved, they are in effect. You may upload your updated bylaws to givebacks or email to the Colorado PTA office at office@copta.org, and then that will get to the Bylaws Committee for review and approval. If you need help updating your bylaws, contact your AAVP as well. And at the end of this, I'm going to upload a template for bylaws so that you can either use that to kind of match up to what your bylaws are. If you're looking at maybe this is a review year and you want to adjust formatting, and it also includes some just good information that needs to be included. And then one last thing to add on bylaws, local unit bylaws may not contradict Colorado State PTA or Jeffco PTA bylaws. So just if you, when you're creating your bylaws, just keep that in mind. All right, one last component to the secretary role is going to be overseeing the parliamentary process for meetings. So most PTAs use Robert's Rules of Order. These help keep meetings on track, respectful, and ensure a process for allowing opportunity for input. A cheat sheet is going to be added to the chat box as soon as I'm out of my full screen presentation for you guys to utilize as a resource. And then we'll also email those out and make those available too. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I thought that was going to take much longer. So any other questions now that we talked about bylaws? Any bylaws questions? Or parliamentary procedures?
There's a couple in the
answering a few
chat.
in the chat.
Yeah, there's a couple in the chat. So it says, do the names of all in attendance need to be listed in the minutes?
Yes, all attendees need to be listed in the minutes, in the meeting minutes.
Okay, and then we have,
I forgot this
do you need
I had to do.
do you
Totally
need to
forgot.
change your bylaws anytime a position gets changed?
If you're changing the
You're so prepared.
Thank you. If you're changing the position title or just the descriptions or anything like that, it will need to be updated. Yes.
Quorum, does that include officers or in addition to?
Depends on your bylaws. It could go either way.
Did he say that you had a quick cheat sheet for parliamentary procedure?
I do have the Robert's Rules of Order. Yes.
Okay. Do we set up the procedures as well, or just the bylaws?
The procedures are an internal document that you would maintain as a local unit. It's not a requirement, and you don't need to submit that to COPTA.
Okay, and the last question in the chat is, standing rules are mentioned in the bylaws. What are those?
Standing rules are complementary to bylaws and also complementary to Robert's rules. So those are kind of just standing rules of how meetings are held, how procedures your procedure handbook would also be could be an example of standing order or standing rules. And I will look for a resource on that. I did not find one, like a template for that. I did not find one in my search for this training, but I will look for one because I'm sure we have one.
That's all I have in the chat.
Okay. Anybody want to vocalize a question?
Yeah, I kind of want to clarify my quorum question because I am trying to update our bylaws now and I'm using the template. And under regular membership meetings, section 4 is asterisk. So it was one of the sections we're not allowed to change except for filling in the number. So what I wanted to clarify was, so it's number members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction. But what I was wondering is, since the officers are members, does that include them then with that statement? Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to work really quick on getting these as a Google link, my resources, because the chat box is not letting me upload documents. Interestingly enough, it's blacked out.
Really?
Yeah, it's like grayed out and it's not letting me click on it. So
You can see if you can send it to me and I can drop it in.
oh, that's fine. I've already got it. I just need to. So here is the template for bylaws, just a Google Drive link.
Okay.
And
So while I'm looking in the chat here, yes, Anna Crystal said that a list of attendees do need to be included. I always just kept a separate list on the side. I don't think I ever realized that they were part of the official business. So I put that in the chat wrong.
yes, the attendees are part of your official meeting minutes. So that second link is the Robert's Rules of Order, kind of just like a cheat document. I called it a cheat sheet, but there's like 5 pages. So, and then that first one is the bylaws template. So, and I will look for and send out the standing rules and the agenda templates as well for you guys. Any other questions? Yeah, and Anna, just so you know, like if you're at least including it with the meeting minutes, it's totally fine to do it that way. It just needs to be make sure that you're maintaining that with your meeting minutes, that it would be included as part of the record.
I have a question about minutes.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm not real clear on how detailed to be. Because I don't want to miss anything that's important, but I also feel like I can't take a note of everything or else I'll never be able to keep up. So can you just kind of like, I don't know, expand maybe on how to paraphrase or what's important or what not to include or
Yeah, so I mean, for meeting minutes, like I know people get into discussion and there's a lot of back and forth. If you just kind of summarize, you know, okay, so people had these concerns, like maybe there's multiple people, and you know, again, also factual information. So like we're leaving emotions out of it. This person was upset. That doesn't need to be included. Just that factual like summary of these people brought up this concern, these people brought up this concern, this is what the result of it was, or this is how it concluded. It can be as simple as that. Is that helpful?
yeah, and like when our principal does a report, you know, do we write everything he like updates on or just like give a general update on X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I mean, just the general, just that summarization. And then if he is sending, like, if he has like a written copy, I know Jim probably doesn't
No.
because it's in his notebook, but just like a quick jot, like of, you know, just the topics that he covered is totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
And Natalie, yes, any decisions or voting that happens does need to be recorded in the meeting minutes. So any business that was like finalized or decided on and the vote. Absolutely. Amanda, for the bylaws question in the chat, look at the template. That should answer your question. There are things in there that are specific for the Colorado PTA that do need to be included and that are not adjustable.
And do we have a sample of minutes?
I do not. I can get one. Wow, I thought I was prepared.
You are.
I have another question. Do most PTAs have like a website or something that we can like post our minutes on or post like activities on or anything like that? And if so, is there like a venue for that?
So Givebacks actually gives each PTA, so it's the membership platform, and there's also a customizable website on there as well. So you can include a link to maybe a Google Drive or upload documents that way as well.
So you're saying give backs, GI with the like S at the end?
Yep, give backs.
Okay.
So Amanda had a general question about board terms. Some schools have it for 1 year. I think 2 years is better because by the time you figure it out round one, you're so much better at it for round two. That's at an elementary school level, that's kind of ideal because you tend to be there a little longer. Middle school, we did it for 1 year because if you show up 2 years, you know, if somebody's in the position when you get there as a 6th grade parent, you're not there for 6th or 7th, you can't fill in as an 8th grade parent. So maybe 1 year at the middle school, higher levels, and then I would say a 2-year term. And I highly recommend staggering them because unlike the Jeffco PTA, we turn over all 6 positions every 2 years. It's ideal if you don't like lose your president and your treasurer in the same year. You know, if the president and the vice president can turn over together, and then maybe the vice president automatically takes over for the president, you can have a president-elect, secretary and treasurer can turn over in the same year, and then you've got those staggered. You're having an election every year, but you're not having an entirely new board that has to, you know, make things up as they go along or start over from scratch.
There is an additional question about handwritten notes. It says, if handwritten notes are taken for more detail, should they be saved separately than the more formal summarized approved minutes?
I would just attach them truthfully to whatever your official record is that you are keeping for the meeting minutes so that they all stay together. And then Chris, meeting minutes do not need to be published to your website. They just need to be made available to your members. And then Natalie, I have not heard that we're not allowed to publicly post minutes. I have had the direction and I would need to clarify it because it's been a couple years since I heard it, but I was told bylaws are not supposed to be publicly posted, but the meeting minutes, I've never had a direction on whether they were allowed to be publicly posted or not.
Can I mention something that I used to do for Creighton?
Please do.
So I would put them on our website because I did that as a way to save paper. So they would be sent out in advance with a link that people could check beforehand. But if anybody had come to the meeting and had not checked their email or had not read the meeting minutes, it was easily accessible from the meeting. I know yesterday somebody mentioned that they don't have internet at their school or Wi-Fi. So that wouldn't work for them, but it was just something that I thought worked and helped save some trees.
I used to send it out in a group email.
Mm-hmm. Katie, you do not need to send meeting agendas or minutes to the Colorado PTA. That's just to your membership. Bylaws are the only thing that we've covered tonight that you would need to send to Colorado PTA. And Natalie, I'll confirm. Like I said, I haven't had that direction. The only one that I had was for bylaws, so I will confirm.
So real quick, we can post minutes to the PTA website, but it's not required. Is that right?
It is not required. I'm going to confirm on what Natalie is stating on her response there, on whether they can be forward facing, just because they are a legal document that sometimes like legal entities like banks and the IRS request to see pretty frequently. I've never had that direction that we couldn't make our minutes publicly facing. So I'm going to confirm that. Thank you, Angela. So Angela posted, this is from Washington State PTA. Minutes are legal documents. Making these documents public can make PTA a target. Bad actors may attempt to use a PTA's minutes for their own gain or to take advantage of a situation. So post at your own risk.
I had a quick question about that though. Sorry, I formerly worked at schools and then now do a PTA, so it's a little different. There is something regarding we host community meetings that feature our PTA, our school admin, as well as our CSC. And then in an effort to try and have higher levels of community engagement, we do always share the minutes from that Because in our mind, that's a community facing event. And then perhaps what we don't share out to a broader space is like an internal PTA meeting. Does that seem in alignment? It's
I
been
think
a
so.
bit since I've been in.
Yeah, I think that's totally in
Okay.
alignment with what that directive from that Angela posted. That would.
Okay, right.
So just one thing that I wanted to add to that is um what I believe I heard this at a convention meeting that I was in. Basically that they don't, those meeting minutes are summarized. And so not summer, you know what I mean? But we're not documenting every single word that was said. And so that's what they're talking about when they say it can be misconstrued or taken in a certain way. It's like, unless you were there, you know, really the PTA meeting minutes can be distributed to the members. But if you're not a member and you're not kind of doing, you know, you're not involved in what's going on with the PTA, then you could see something in there and be like, oh my gosh, they're doing what? And then it becomes this big drama. But again, that's just what I found, and that's a tidbit of what I heard. So I will let Crystal, you know, get maybe official word from Colorado PTA on what their stance is.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're missing the context when you're just providing the summaries and the meeting minutes. Absolutely. So I think for tonight, and I will clarify, like I said, but for tonight, I would say post at your own risk.
I would think though that anybody who's going through PTA meeting minutes to like look for stuff would be involved already. Because if you have time to do that, I understand, you know, there's crazy people everywhere. It's just, I don't know, like.
You'd be surprised, Sandy.
We live in crazy times right now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely see that perspective, you know, of wanting to post with care. So, but I think generally at a local unit level, I don't think that you guys are, you know, people are not going to weaponize like your carnival conversations or, you know, back to school nights and that kind of stuff. So like I said, though, post at your own risk. If there is something that you find that could be controversial, maybe that's some meeting minutes that you don't post or make public.
Is there
And-
anything else?
I was just looking over some of my past notes, and another reason why I was given that we should not post meeting minutes publicly, like just post them out there, was because it doesn't encourage people to actually come and get involved. So that's another one. Like if they're just reading kind of like the highlights, they're really not getting the full conversation, and we really want to get them to come in and be a part of it. So that was just another one from my notes. Take it for what it's worth.
No, that's a great little bit of information.
Recruitment at a basic level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. If there is nothing else, I am going to end the recording here. Thank you all for joining us.
And I know a few people just really quick came in throughout the meeting. So if you have not yet, add your name and school to the chat so we can record who attended. Thanks for attending. Thank you guys for being here.